And what the governor have just said is a very good thing. Now, let me give you an instance. When Soludo came on board, we saw what happened. He used force in terms of way to handle security. It came backfired. So he has discovered now that all these problems going on now in the East, people use iPod as an scapegoat. Anything happens, they say iPod. You see the newsmen or which at the end of the day, why you should ask yourself, why is it coming now? It's coming now because we want everybody to know Nnamdi Kanu is out from that place as a free man. That himself will stand as a shorty. Shorty in the sense that anything that happens to him, he himself will hold. Reason, if Nnamdi Kanu comes now, we now know where are these problems coming from. That is why the governor is going out with this type of approach, which I will support the governor and tell the federal government to listen. That you stand as a shorty that if you didn't say Nnamdi Kanu, come and hold me. That's what the governor suggests. He knows very well that you made Nnamdi Kanu is out from that place. My brother, let us face the reality of life. Everything in terms of insecurity will be a bygone in this. Look, honestly speaking, like what my brother was saying from Senegal, Dakar, people were finding very difficult. People outside. But people that went back home, all of them enjoyed their Christmas. That came back home. They enjoyed that. There was no problem with them. But an outsider who said that, hey, that place was unmovable. It's not government, everything. But right. People that came back home, they enjoyed their Christmas. They spoke with their parents, did house meeting, everything. They went back home, freely afraid. So, what we want is continuation of what? Freedom and movement of everything. Whether marginalization or no marginalization. Look.
Thank you, Mazi. Thank you, Mazi, for your contribution. Liborous Oshoma, lawyer, public policy, and social affairs analyst, joins us from Dakar. Thank you for staying the course on the program. Now, marginalization or not, here's something we know about what Nnamdi Kanu is asking for. Secession, agitation for secession. That's something we're sure of. That is key to what he and the group is asking for. And I'd like us to quickly speak to that because, just a minute, Mr. Oshoma. Yes, just a minute. So what we're hearing from the Office of the Attorney General is that the case against Kanu bordered on national security. And you know what the federal government position has been as to, rule of law and national security. They have made reference to the case law between the federal government and Asari Dokubo and how a person's human rights is not as important as national security. But I'd like you to speak to the constitutionality of secession, which is very key to Nnamdi Kanu's agitation.
The likes of, let me start from Asari Dokubo's case. Asari Dokubo also, they asked for secession in their own agitations, militancy, including blowing up pipelines and, Charles Oka had to be taken. When that crisis was on, some people like Charles Oka, you remember the Bomo Jomo, took the opportunity to wreak havoc, and claiming injustice and marginalization. But at the end of the day, Asari Dokubos likes of Asari Dokubo was arrested, and eventually, even though the Supreme Court ruled that in the matters of national security, in some cases, when you talk about national security, fundamental human rights can be subservient under national security, provided the provisions of the laws are followed as laid down. But didn't it make Asari Dokubo a hero? But at the end of the day, to some extent, government was able to find a middle ground to that crisis. And so, in the same vein, in this case, what is the position of the federal government and what is the position of the courts in as far as this matter is concerned? The court had disagreed with the federal government. So the position of the federal government is no longer tenable in the eye of the law, because the court had ruled, even though you had asked for a stay of execution and appeal. So we are still waiting for a superior ruling on that. But are from the southeast, and so they are not outsiders. And you have the Bomo Jomos in the southeast who are using Nnamdi Kanu as an IPOB flag to wreak havoc. I'm using Bomojomo figuratively now. So let us take away, like my elder Mazi from Arochukwu, Amuvi in Arochukwu has said, let us take away the Asari I'm comparing the two now. The Asari in, what do you call it, Nnamdi Kanu, so that we can fish out the Bomojomo. What the federal government should do, just the same way the federal government had been pandering towards the issue in the issues of the herdsmen, the Fulani herdsmen crisis. The federal government said, no, don't call them, you don't label a group. You know, they don't give a blanket name to a group. You know, the federal government was willingly, you know, was very willing to create a solution to that crisis. And so to also a very large extent, we're also seeing that also die down. So why is the federal government hesitant in pursuing the same approach they use, you know, in the headers crisis? Why also are the Southeastern leaders hesitant in joining, you know, their voices with that of Soludo now? Not just sit down in the comfort of your home and call for release of Nnamdi Kanu, but have a roadmap to say if he's released, this is what we intend to do. We kickstart discussions from here. And then also, we have also had the buy-in of certain stakeholders who also are interested in this.
You're saying that the federal government must be able to bend a little like it did in other cases. Just hold that thought a minute. Ada has called in from Jos.
Yes.
Good morning, Ada.
Good morning, Listen and Liborous. It's Ada calling from Jos Plateau State. Listen, let me tell you something. I feel so sad whenever I think about this Nnamdi Kanu's case, you know. You see, the problem now is I would have felt better, you know, if the governors in the Southeast, irrespective of their parties, had joined forces with Soludo, you know, and then take the same position, and then meet Buhari, you understand what I'm saying, and then let's give this a chance. So I think it will be a plus for President Buhari if he accepts Soludo's request, and then he will not produce him whatever because I don't understand. I thought rule of law, but somebody must obey rule of law first, you know. But I'm not a lawyer, so but what it is, at least it will be a credit for him than keeping Nnamdi Kanu there. So we have another administration who might not come and do what he should have done. You understand what I'm trying to say? So I'm not holding this for any of them, but all I know is that they're saying that the same sun will cause the ice that has been that sun that used to melt ice. The elders in the Southeast, especially the governors, in fact, I'm disappointed in them. They are the ones to make sure this thing is resolved once and for all. What are we doing with all these killings and what have you, and then counter the blames and what have you, you know? It makes sense. So I think that if he does that, it will give peace a chance. And once that place is stable, everything is stable. Once there's a threat to security in any place, if there's a threat to security in another place, that's what we don't understand in Nigeria. So it's not a question of saying it's a Southeastern problem or it's a Northern problem.
Okay.
Or the same, let's not do about Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Ada, for your contribution. So, Mr. Oshoma, I'd like you to quickly speak to how we can lawfully navigate the agitation for secession within the context of the Nigerian constitution, because the governor is talking about insecurity. Yeah. What caused this agitation is that they want to leave Nigeria. How do you go about this on the table of discussion that they're talking about?
Nifemi, at the end of the day, if no matter how far we run away from this discussion, like the urine, it will always come back in between our legs. The Boko Haram today, partly, is all about, you know, agitations. It's all about secession. We want to create our own religion. So we want our own style of governance. The militancy in the Niger Delta, it's about we want to control our resources. Indirectly, we want secession. We want to control our narrative. We want to create our own government. Even the pocket of kidnapping, you see in the north, terrorism, you see in the north, it's all about agitation. So these rich people have used us. They rustle our cow. So we want to control our narrative. The South, even in the West, you had what do you call it before now? You had the OPC. OPC was not just about protecting the West. It was about, look, we also want to control our narrative and our government. Then came the Sunday Igboho. The Sunday Igboho also had its followers. So, and then the IPOB. Even though it's not in our constitution. Remember, in the First Republic Constitution, you know that even the issue of secession was expunged from the constitution at that time because of fear. After addressing the minority fears, with the Willings Commission, the government then felt, look, all of these issues have been taken care of. All you need to do is to open a window for a referendum. But all of these are no longer in the constitution. So that's why consistently, even those in government today talked about restructuring, talked about how we should practice true federalism until they came into government. Even the APC government set up a committee headed by Rufai to look into it. So what it means is that there are burning issues that we are shying away from. And people are taking advantage of those issues.
I'm just wondering
to buy cheap popularity.
What alternatives we have, recording to. But let's quickly take Irewalede's call. Good morning.
Good morning, Nitani, and I greet your guest.
Oh, Joshua from Irewalede. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yes,
Joshua.
Thank you. I just want to quickly speak to my brothers in the Southeast this morning. I think the word recession is the big issue here. We should all remember that there was already a civil war that claimed millions of lives. We all suffered for it, whether you are in the East, in the West, or in the North. We also suffered for it. Let us understand that Nigeria has already paid a supreme price for no longer, is no longer tenable as an excuse. We ended up talking about dialogue. We ended up having meetings and deadlocks. It means that there is no end to meetings because presently the casualties are more about killing people in the Southeast. So I want to say that releasing Nnamdi Kanu, of course, might ease tension, but let my brothers in the Southeast know that we are killing ourselves. We are not killing government. So if that will help, then we advance dialogue on this matter.
We attempted to use war to get this secession. It didn't work. Decades after, we have several, consultation and, confabs and conferences and attempts to upgrade our constitution. But the conversation remains that we can discuss every other thing except the divisibility, the fact that the Nigerian nation is indissoluble. There doesn't seem to be a room to have this conversation, Mr. Oshoma. That's exactly what I'm saying. And
you see,
I don't see any window opening for that conversation at all.
That's what I'm telling you. I completely agree with Mr. Joshua. And also, the government cannot continue to shy away from this conversation of, let there be level playing field for everybody. Let the chicken perch, let the bird perch, and let the duck perch. What the government seems to be doing, Nigeria, anybody that talks about balancing and restructuring is as if you want to divide Nigeria. No, we have intermarried. We have done a lot of things together. What people are basically asking for is let there be fairness. I give you an instance. You can't, once that balance, there seems to be some form of balance. All of these people who are also using this as a bait to foment trouble, we die natural, gradually. It is not an overnight thing. That example I want to give you. Let me give you. You see, this structure that we operate today has made us so lazy and docile. Look at the Southeast governors. 3 of them are dancing around all in the name of G5, are globetrotting, while their house is on fire. It is common. It is easy for them to say it is not in my state. It is Anambra. But it was in Imo. It moved from Imo to Abia. Abia to Anambra. If you remember the days of Osisikanku in Abia State, in Aba, it took the locals to chase out those boys. But eventually, the locals now became a lord unto themselves. So that's why now the elders from the meeting level, there is no town in Nigeria, in the Southeast, that does not have village meetings wherever they are, including America. So they've taught almost all of us. Everybody now go for village meeting.
I'm going to cut you short very quickly, Mr. Oshoma. We just need to get a contribution from northern Nigeria to this conversation. And Chidi has called in from Kafancha. Good morning, Chidi.
Good morning, Mr. Me.
You have 1 minute. Please go ahead.
It's all right. Good morning, Barrister Oshoma.
Yeah, good morning.
I should like to opine that what Professor Soludo has requested is a very noble one. And it would be very, very ideal to release Nnamdi Kanu from detention. Not just Nnamdi Kanu, but so many other people that are in different detention centers across Nigeria. This will pave way to create enabling environment to have a peaceful way out of sorting out whatever the issues that may have brought about these sentiments about. And it is going to go a long way in entrenching peace, particularly in the southeastern part of Nigeria and very many parts of Nigeria, especially as we are entering into the election that is few weeks from now, so that the elections will be able to be credible, free, fair, and acceptable to all Nigerians. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chidi, for your contribution. Mr. Shoma, we're wrapping up now. I'd like you to speak, as we begin to conclude, speak to the sensitivity of these decisions, particularly in a pre-election season. In Anambra, the last governorship election, only 10% of the registered voters actually came out to vote. Release Kanu 1 month to election. What's the security implication on the election in the East?
That's why I am saying that let people not play politics with this. Soludo is not standing for election. If at all, if Soludo is being political, he would prefer Nnamdi Kanu to be even in the threshold. But no, let's also, in asking for Nnamdi Kanu's release, like I said, it should be a 50-50 thing. There should be a buy-in of Nnamdi Kanu to this approach first, so that we don't go back to when he was released on bail and there were conditions and he flouted all the conditions. So now it's like the governor is asking to take him on bail, to say, look, I will produce him whenever you need him, but let also the governors and the elders in the Southeast have his buy-in. And let the federal government be flexible in this. Let Abubakar Malami, the Attorney General, not be stiff. Let him use the same approach that they are using to deal with the herdsmen crisis and to deal with some of the kidnappers in the north. Let them also use the same approach on this case. Remember, Garba Shehu told us that a kidnapper's wife, when they would kidnap the train bombers, they are one of them. They asked for his release, including the release of his wife who was in jail, who gave birth. They had to use private jet to fly her to her father's house in Maiduguri. So if you give these people such, such treatment, such soft landing, are you waiting until the Southeast start to bomb ships, bomb aeroplane, bomb train before you extend, such hand of, dialogue to them? That's why people keep talking about, oh, you're treating this person differently, you treat us differently. So let there be that fairness. And then all of us, we say, though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. But for us to stand in brotherhood, we must identify that our tongue and tribe differs. So in the language that we all understand, let's go back home and talk to our people.
I get you.
Like Mr. Joshua has said, that we are destroying ourselves and not the outsider or the man in government.
That's our time, Mr. Oshoma. There's an active rehabilitation and reintegration program ongoing for terrorists. Well, after IPOB has also been prescribed. So you're saying that we should also see that cut across board for every group that is taking up arms in Nigeria. Lawyer, public policy and social affairs analyst Liborous Oshoma, thank you so much for talking to us.